I am justice. I protect the innocent and those who fear evil. I'm the one who will become the god of a new world that everyone desires. All those who would oppose that god, they are the ones who are truly evil.
Power, psychological warfare. Death Note is a show full of useful lessons on all of these. And we have already seen more than 15 tricks in the past 2 videos. If you haven't watched them already, check them out after you finish this video. After his initial defeat in episode 2, Light vowed to have revenge on his enemy, and he started to scheme and plan to eliminate L. But he barely knew anything useful about L, no clues about his location, face, or real name. This meant he can't really kill him using the Death Note, not yet, at least. In his position, some possible actions were to either lure L by creating some event or challenge, or use the local Japanese force to reveal L's identity for him. The latter strategy is called divide and conquer. Number 1.
I'm not the one who's going to find L. I can let the police do that for me. And when they do, that's when I'll eliminate
Number
him.
1. Divide and conquer. The strategy aims at dividing large concentrations of power into smaller pieces that can be conquered individually. In Book 6 of The Art of War by Niccolò Machiavelli, he states that a captain should endeavor with every act to divide the forces of the enemy. This, he advises, can be achieved either by making him suspicious of his men, in whom he trusted, or by giving him cause that he has to separate his forces, and because of this, become weaker. So Yagami Light decides to fuel mistrust between the local Japanese police force and L. To get them to investigate each other, he had to manufacture a reason for this investigation. This was achieved by leading L to conclude that Kira has access to private police information, which means that Kira is either a police member or someone directly or indirectly close to him. He already knew that L and the police don't trust each other due to the secrecy on L's behalf, so this was perfect.
Well, Daddy's a policeman. And that must be the reason why you're so confident.
That's right.
In this scene, Light hacked his father's computer through their home's network. He realized that the police suspected Kira to be a student, specifically because of the emerging pattern of behavior considering the time of death of the victims.
Concerning L's request that we investigate the time of death for each victim, we found that all of them occurred between the hours of 4 p.m. and 2 a.m. on weekdays, local time, with 68% of them occurring between 8 p.m. and 12 a.m. Weekends and holidays appear to be the exception to this rule, as the times of death vary much more widely than during the week.
He decided to use this as well as the following Death Note rule to his advantage.
If the cause of death is written within 40 seconds of writing the person's name, it will happen. If the cause of death is not specified, the person will simply die of a heart attack. After writing the cause of death, details of the death should be written in the next 6 minutes and 40 seconds. That sound right to you, Ryuk?
So what's your point?
In other words, if I write heart attack as the cause of death, then I should be able to write down all the details, including time of death afterwards, shouldn't I?
The next day, Light kills 23 prisoners, one every hour, to send a message to L. The hidden message is, I can kill people whenever I feel like it, and there's nothing you can do about it. L then concludes that Kira has access to the police information, because the pattern of killing changed immediately after the theory of Kira being a student emerged. Understand, Light knows that in order to get closer to L, he has to take risks. This is by far his most devastating mistake, because it narrowed the pool of suspects from the entirety of Kanto, Japan, which is like 40 million people in the early 2000s, to few hundreds. There is actually a Quora post on the subject entitled Finding Light Yagami's Biggest Mistake Using Computer Science. The link is in the description.
With all due respect, Chief, we're resigning. We demand that you assign us to a different case. Otherwise, you can have our badges right here and now.
Why? You're good cops.
Isn't it clear? It's because we value our lives, sir.
Now, some of the police members started withdrawing from the force, fearing for their lives due to Kira's amazing display of power. This was fueled by their resentment towards L. I mean, why should they risk their lives with someone who doesn't show his real face, right? Later on, we realize that L is already on the move and everyone related to the members of Kira's task force are being investigated by the FBI. Kira's plan is a success.
I've won. Exactly as planned.
One of the ways that narcissistic parents use this strategy is by labeling one child as the golden child, who is not capable of doing anything wrong, and the other as a scapegoat who is to blame for virtually everything. The first becomes reliant on their parent for praise and recognition. The other seeks their validation and pending approval, never feeling enough, always striving to be the favorite. This creates a competitive tension between the siblings that the narcissist can simply swoop in and play the role of the stoic savior. Ryuk lets Light know that he is being followed, and Light's new goal now is to eliminate the surveillance without drawing suspicions to him. In preparation to execute that plan, Light starts testing the Death Note rules on criminals to know what's possible and what's not. So he kills 6 criminals using a heart attack, but specifying weird actions to be conducted before their deaths.
One of them escaped and ran into the bathroom I had specified in the Death Note. Another one drew the same symbol I had drawn in the Death Note before he died. And finally, a third wrote the same letter I had written in the Death Note, word for word. All 3 did exactly what I intended them to do. For the other 3 inmates, I purposely wrote conditions that were virtually impossible. Which means, it's impossible to make someone write what they don't already know. Or, at the very least, it has to be the kind of thing that they could come up with on their own.
Number 2. A. Overwhelming and confusing with meaningless clues. Planting information can take many shapes and forms, and be done for numerous reasons. In the beginning, Light created an obvious pattern of heart attack deaths among criminals to let the world know that he exists. He did the same thing with L, to let him know that he can control time of death. In this instance, however, instead of creating a clear and meaningful pattern, he planted false information in the form of meaningless clues that are designed to waste L's time, squander his resources, and overload him with additional tasks.
We have another victim. A note was found at the scene.
L, do you know gods of death love apples?
Damn you, Kira.
The letter written by the prisoner serves that purpose well, specifically since it plays on a smart person's need to always find a clever explanation. Smart people like L rejoice in intellectual challenges, and their tendency to overanalyze everything leads them to waste time on the trivial. Do you know that Shinigami likes apples? That statement isn't only designed to create confusion, but also to dishearten the will of the detective, by bringing up an uncertainty and a spiritual element. If some sort of divine intervention entity is involved, the whole game is futile. The tendency of brilliant people can be further explained and illustrated in the scene from a movie called It's about a group of FBI profilers getting tested in an island. The twist is that one of them turns out to be the killer, but they have to figure out who before the killer eliminates all of them.
Look, whoever did this really knows his engineering. Remotes, timers. They teach some of this back in first year with siege tactics, but to set this up this fast, you gotta really know what you're doing. Pressure plates, radio detonators. It's all private sector sold, but the wiring's the tricky part. People take specialty courses in this sort of thing for years.
The character's eagerness to chase problems and constantly demonstrating his expertise in intelligence leads him into a trap. One of the good ways to create a distraction or set a trap is by offering a challenge. At any rate, there are other instances where Light plants faulty information, like when he instructs Misa Amane to insinuate that her killing abilities can be shared with others, in order to create panic and invite unnecessary theories.
Kira has yet to judge. Also, I will share my power with others who I feel are worthy, and I will encourage them to do the same.
Perhaps his best use of this, however, is when he added rules to the Death Note to confirm their innocence. Number 2. B. Using an existing pattern. Manipulators often learn other people's rituals and patterns to frame them. They might do something inconsistent with their personality and habits, and that is consistent with what a specific person of a group does in order to set them up. A silly example would be sibling A has or had a habit of eating sibling B's food. Sibling B has anger issues. Stepdad waits until there's an existing tension between the two, then he might eat or throw away the food to fuel their conflict, resulting in sibling B snapping and resulting in their mother finally deciding to kick them out from the house. Now that the experiments are clear, it's time for Kira to execute his plan and lure the FBI agent.
During the week, he goes to school and crams school at night. Dates on his day off. A normal kid, just a hardworking senior in high school. Chief Yagami's son, Light Yagami. No cause for suspicion. At any rate, I'll be done with my surveillance today, and that'll be it.
Number 3. Knowing the role you're playing in playing it. Being predictable has its advantages. The best way to avoid suspicion is to study the setting and know what's normal and what's not. Light sets a date with a girl so he can camouflage his actions, appearing as someone normal, just another student going out in the weekend with his girlfriend. Light is the type of person to ask himself, what role am I playing at the moment? Another quality of normal behavior is purposefulness. A normal person walks with a goal in mind, whether to go from point A to B, buy something, eat something, or achieve a specific task. When someone is directionless, they raise questions, red flags. An example would be leaving a store after not buying anything, or walking around the campus without a school bag. Number 4. Finding forcing moves. In chess, a forcing move is one which requires the opponent to reply in a certain way, or which greatly limits the ways in which he can respond, limits their choices. For example, after rook h8, the white king is in check, and it is illegal for white to ignore the threat. So they must make a move to get out of the check. The only possible square in this instant is to move the king to e2. Similarly, Light goes to the back of the bus and sits in the seat right before the last row, to force the FBI agent to sit directly behind him. That is if he wants to continue his surveillance in a comfortable position. This was done to ensure the FBI agent is able to monitor the situation. Around 11:31 AM, one of Light's spare criminals hijacks the bus, asking for money. If earlier on Light sat in the front or middle seats, he would be too close to the hijacker, and Ray Penbar would be more reluctant to initiate a conversation. Light pretends to calm his date through a note by reassuring her that he will handle the hijacker. He baits the FBI agent into starting a conversation, and the FBI agent tells Light to not intervene and that he will take care of it. Light pretends to be suspicious and demands a verification from Ray by placing him as a potential hijacker. This is another psychological forcing move. The agent has no choice and is forced to reveal his identity to Light,
Here's my proof.
rationalizing to himself that if Light were Kira, he would have killed the criminal by this time. And since he already cleared Light in his mind, he feels slightly okay with it. Other factors that led to that decision are the stress of the situation and his focus on saving others. Light then draws the attention of the hijacker by dropping the piece of paper written on the death note. The criminal panics after he picks it up, since now he can see the Shinigami Ryuk, which results to a sequence of actions that were already predetermined by Light, leading to the death of the criminal. After the incident happened, Ray requests that Light doesn't share that he met an FBI agent with the police force. Light agrees, stating that he won't even share it with his father.
I understand. I promise I won't tell anyone that I met you, and of course, that includes my father.
This struck me as odd, like why would he bring out his father? I checked the Japanese subtitles and he said the same thing. I remember having the same question a few months ago, when I wrote the script to this video, but I forgot the answer to my question. Do you have any opinion on the subject? Why did he say that? At any rate, so there is a link in the description on how to act if you are ever in a situation like this. If you have enjoyed this video, hit the like button and watch my other videos on the subject, how Light Yagami manipulates people and how L plays the game. At any rate, I'll see you in the next video.